Next is what we call my favorite cut, which is this one along here, which is any woodworker will know very difficult to do in the ordinary way of thinking about things, because the cutter has to reach in over this space and then do a round over. And I'll show you when I get the cutter on, but the only way I found to do that is to run a standard shaper cutter upside down.
Yep.
This cut is a pretty difficult cut to do, and the only way I found to do it was to take a round over shaper cutter, which is meant to operate on this side up, doing a little round over underneath something, and turn it over and run it upside down, which means of course also running the shaper backwards or in reverse, because this cutter is able to cut in over, creating this ledge, and then cut this little round over as its last project. Otherwise, I know of no way to cut that round over mechanically. You know, one could sand it by hand or something or other, but this does a pretty good job of replicating it, and it's as close as we're going to come as far as I can see. It's a slightly unusual setup, as you'll see when I put this thing on the shape. When these are done, they're still going to have this cut made, because this is where they half lap with the other piece. But it turns out that cut's a fairly easy one to do because it's at a right angle to the flat top. So all I have to do is secure this against something or in something that's going to run across the table saw that's at a right angle, and the standard table saw miter gauge would be fine, and then remove this material either with a single saw blade and multiple cuts, or using a dado head, which is just a stacked set of blades that'll remove a whole bunch of material. There are certainly ways to remove all this with a shaper, but it's simply not worth it. It's using a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. It's so much easier to do on the table saw. Mm-hmm. The reason why these old ones have yellow tape on the end, by the way, is when I judged them ready to be worked upon, I put yellow tape on them because they had so many issues that until they got their yellow tape, they weren't ready for today. We got this cutter on here, the cutter we're going to run backwards and upside down. The rub bearing is going to run down this groove in here, and it's a bigger rub bearing than we're going to end up with in the end, because I want to take a lighter pass, still a pretty heavy pass, but a lighter pass, so that I'm not trying to remove all this material at once. So this is going to have to be done twice, once with a smaller collar that'll cut this a little bit deeper, but I'm afraid if I try to cut all that material out of there at once that it'll dig in and chip out and do odd things.